Thank you. And hello again to our folks from Kansas City, Nahro. I think we have an intimate group right now, but that doesn't mean we can't have a great conversation. So this is about how to take it to the next level of serving, right? Serving as leaders and giving back to Kansas Nahro and sharing what Kansas Nahro is doing for national Nahro. So taking the amazing impact you have in Kansas and giving it a national spin, a statewide spin in some cases. And so I'd like to start with someone who has been a mentor to me, and especially during the last 10 months has shown all of us how to model leadership and how to take challenging situations and rise above. And that is our national president, Ms. Sunny Shaw, who I consider not just a mentor, but a leader, a friend, and in many, many cases, a dear sister from someone different than the mom that I call mom. And what Sunny has taught me is not just being thoughtful to others, but about strategic thinking and pulling in everyone to get to a solution. And so she's here with us today. And Sunny, what I'd like to do is just ask you the first question. How did you get to be national president of an organization with 19,000 members? Whoa. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so those of you that are in attendance, I see you and I'm glad you're here. You may have already heard from me a little bit earlier today. So it may be a repeat, but hey, throw in some questions if there's something that doesn't get answered that you thought of between the first session and now. As I had shared, I actually started my career as a receptionist, and I never thought as a receptionist at a housing authority that someday I would be National Nahro president. That wasn't even on my radar. I didn't even know about Nahro on that first day as a receptionist. But what I do know is that I fell in love with this work. The work really resonated with me, knowing that because of what we did each day, that there were babies that had a roof over their head, there were mommies and daddies that could go to work and have a little bit of relief and recognize that they could put some food on the table because of what we were doing. And that was really what caught my heart in this work that we do. As my career grew, I served at the state level, which is critical. That's a great place to start your Nahro leadership. I moved on up to the regional level, and then later on was asked to consider running for national once my involvement at national evolved. So at national, I served on, I don't know, maybe five committees and task forces and things, some of them simultaneously. So I didn't get a lot of sleep at conferences based on that amount of workload that I had, but I knew I loved it. At the end of the day, Nahro is family. And when I was at a Nahro conference, I felt like I was at home. That connection is so strong. And I knew that I wanted to move this work forward. It was that important to me. So when Carl Ritchie asked me if I'd consider running for senior vice president, like I said earlier today, I ran from him for a couple of days. I dodged him in the hallways and let elevator doors close before I would hop on because it was a question that I just felt so inadequate to answer and to step up to the call. But throughout that meeting that we were at together, I started to think, well, maybe I do have something to offer. Maybe there is something I can do for this organization that I love so much. And so, yeah, I accepted his challenge to run, and I ran a contested race that was really challenging, and it was difficult because the person I was running against, I said earlier, wasn't an opponent. The person I was running against was a friend. And so, you're sitting in that room when they're announcing who's going to win. And on the one hand, you hope you win, but on the other hand, you're cheering for that person as well. And on that day, you're thrilled, but you're also a little bit sad because you both can't take on the role together. And so, but I did win that election. And since then, I've been elevated to president, which has been an incredible experience. So that's my journey. That's the how to become Nahro president for dummies version, right? I mean, quick and easy. It's the synopsis. There you go. All wrapped up in one book. You're on mute.
My apologies. Thank you. I'm kind of one of those folks that kind of want to keep it real. We have an intimate group. And so on this group, I'm looking at our national president, our past president from Kansas City, our current president from Kansas City, and 3 additional leaders. We've got Michael, who has been phenomenal on leading the logistics for making this conference happen. I see Jalen and I see a great picture of Ty, both leaders in your own right. So I'm going to like change up maybe part of our plan. And since we're an intimate group, I'd be curious to know, for all of us, let's share the stories of how we got to our leadership positions, no matter where we're at. And let's turn it a little bit, right? We were talking earlier about the changes COVID has happened, and we've each had different experiences. One of the things we didn't talk about is there have been a lot of people watching us in our individual roles. So we by default are modeling the leaders behind us who want to learn how to lead the logistics and management of a conference, which is no small feat. Michael, I think you can share about that. What it's like to be president of an entire state organization and be mindful of housing authorities that have different needs and different sizes and different communities to serve, and then go from a journey of coming in at kind of a entry-level position as a receptionist and then leading a housing authority. And I believe there's 2 underneath your belt, Sunny, and being able to do everything from development to still doing the work that a receptionist might do. So that's kind of who's on the call. So what I'd like to do is change the script and each of us share about our journey. So Ty and Jalen, I'm going to like ask if you want to offer any ideas of, or any questions for all of us on what it's like to become a leader. How would you maybe take on a path to become leadership, and have you ever thought about it? Because I think you've got some past presidents, current presidents, and I'm a VP. So second in command is always fun because you get to mess up a lot, and that's pretty cool. You have any questions about leadership that we can help answer for you?
Honestly,
and Jalen, I'm sorry.
I'm really new to the housing industry. I've been in my position just about a year. I was on the board of directors for our housing authority prior to my starting here. I worked for 17 years in retail, and so I worked at Walmart. So I was on the board here, and then Walmart did a transfer, so I had to step away and was gone for a while. And the director here retired, and she had been impressed, and the board had been impressed with my work on the board of directors and approached me for applying. And anyway, so I threw my hat into the ring, and holy moly, it's a lot different.
Well, actually, first of all, you just exhibited one of the things I think is important in leadership, and that's courage and the ability to be nimble and take chances and opportunity. And let's face it, the Walmart greeter concept means customer service and paying attention to each individual is important to Walmart. And that's what we do on housing side. So I can see like the comparable skills there.
Yeah, that honestly has really helped. I mean,
yeah,
just forming the bond with my tenants, that my customer service experience there with Walmart has helped.
Yeah, I bet. How do you like it?
I love it. There is just so much to learn. You know, like I said, I spent 17 years at Walmart. So I knew everything about retail, what was going on, changes that were coming were easier to adapt to. And now this past year has just been, a waterfall, learning all about HUD, but then also all of these changes are coming down, and it's all about being nimble and learning and just being able to dig in.
And he's smiling. Is everyone catching that? Hey, Presidents Incorporated, I see a leader for the future definitely here, because that smile is infectious, sir. And I want to thank you for that. You were smiling in the last session. You made me feel like, okay, somebody's happy. Yeah. I thank you for that. And Jalen,
Ty actually stepped up when I asked him and he is the district representative for the Southwest District in Kansas.
Right
for
on.
the housing authorities down there. So I appreciate the fact that he still takes my calls.
Yeah. Well, right back at you.
And with that change then, Ty, how has that, do you think, or what have you learned in your transition that we should pay attention to as we transition to what we're calling this new normal? As an association for Nahro, Kansas, for Nahro National, what takeaways have you experienced that you could share with us?
My biggest thing is, as coming in training, I have gotten a little bit of training here and there from Nahro, but I don't know, when someone's new signing up, trying to figure out how to reach out to those new directors and show them the path. Okay, here's the training you need, and here's a good order of what you need. And maybe it's there and I just haven't seen it. But, this past year has been kind of struggling, figuring out what training I really need to look at and focus on to ensure that we're in compliance and, we're going to make HUD happy when they come to visit us eventually.
Well,
and Patricia, I'm going to jump in because I think that that's a really great comment, Ty, because as we have been seeing, I've been watching as my colleagues across the country that I'm friends with, even on Facebook, are announcing their retirements. I'm like going, what is happening? And so, that we have this whole new batch of directors out there that may not be sure where to turn. And I think that makes a lot of sense for Nahro to explore the welcome packet piece of like, hey, we're excited you're here. Here's some things you may want to do as you gear up for the job in front of you. So I appreciate that suggestion. I'm going to write it down and take it to National Nahro. So thank you.
I did, boss. Just I wrote it.
I did too. I did too.
Thank you, Ty. So you already made an impact. I knew that smile was going to be infectious. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Carrie, you just became the chair of the new mentor program, Ty, and you didn't even know it.
I can appoint him, can't I? As Kansas president, can't I appoint him? I thought so.
Well, let's not, Jalen, please speak up. You might get an appointment out of this because that's what leadership is all about. But you're on mute, my friend, like I did.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Hi,
Okay.
Jalen.
I am new at this, obviously. So, and I'm working from home, so you get the ponytail and all that. I agree with him, though. I believe there can never be enough training. I've been in it 3 years now, and I still feel new, and I still feel like there's so much to learn. New ED training, I was offered that immediately the week after I started, actually, and it wasn't through Nahro. I couldn't take it because of the situation I was in. And as Sheila knows, I came into a very bad situation, but I've never had the time to actually take any new ED training. Step by step, this is what you do. This is, when you meet an applicant for the first time, this is what, you can and cannot say, and that type of thing. So I am always up for training, any kind of training there is.
No, that's awesome. Sheila, I'm wondering as, and I'm going to make sure I have it right. You're the current president, yes?
Current president of Kansas Nahro, yes.
We just heard from Jalen and Ty. Can you share what you taking on the role as current president was like with that same kind of, what do I do? What should I be paying attention to? Where do I get help and mentorship? Did you have a similar experience? Yeah.
I still ask those questions. My first experiences with Nahro, do what?
She was saying her too.
My first experience in Nahro was clear back in the 90s, and Kansas Nahro was a much different animal back then. I left to some other housing management and came back, tried to get involved and had mentors myself. Sherry is one of those. Annette, Joanne, those ladies that I had met 30 years ago working in housing at Nahro and were still in the business when I came back in. So when Tina asked me to be the VP, I kind of went, no, do I have sucker written up here or what? And then Tina talked to me, a couple of girls in Tina's office that I'm friends with talked to me. I talked to my board members here and said, is this something I can even do? We're a small agency. I'm me and have half a person in the office for help. Can I even be gone that much? Can our agency afford for me to travel that much? And our board chair, who has been my biggest supporter since I came here to Goodland, said, what an honor for Goodland Housing Authority that somebody sees that our director has those kind of skills, and what an honor for you. We'll make it work regardless of what we have to do. Talked to my husband and he said, yes, that way you can travel and I don't have to. So that was his bit of support. So just decided to jump in and went to the first, even before I took the Kansas Nahro VP position, went to a couple of Southwest and went to a national conference. That's where Sunny and I met, and talked and realized, you know what? I'm scared to death. I'm going to make one mistake after another. I'm going to fall flat on my face and I'm going to do it anyway. This year has been horrible. I'm not a fan of Kansas Nahro presidency right now, but it's not the Kansas Nahro's fault. We're going to blame it on COVID. We have great people in Kansas. When we have a conference, they are amazing. Our service officers, they are so easy to work with. They put everything together. Michael has made even this strange virtual conference has made it so easy to get through the last couple of months, getting everything planned. We do have, it seems like we struggle, and we talked in the last session about having some hybrid training, because we do have people like Jalen that are in a small town at a small agency. I am in the northwest corner of Kansas, almost to Colorado and Nebraska. Ty is in the southwest corner of Nebraska, almost to Colorado and Oklahoma. We're strung out and we're in very rural areas. So having some sort of hybrid where we don't have to necessarily leave our offices, but we're getting the same amount of education and training as other directors would be at the top of my list for Nahro, both on the state level, Southwest, and national. I think we will get a lot more small rural agency directors all across the country involved in some of the training if we could do it that way, because they cannot necessarily afford to do the travel. Now, I have also worked with Kansas Nahro on the Membership Services Committee, and we are trying to raise money so that we have a small agency scholarship so that we can help some of those small agencies pay their way to Kansas Nahro trainings. And this year, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I am on the Southwest Membership Services Committee, and I made a quilt out of t-shirts from all of our old Southwest Habitat for Humanity projects. Oh, cool. And we auctioned that off to our membership to raise money for a small agency Southwest scholarship to help some small agencies get involved on the Southwest side. So that's my push. Do what?
That's leadership.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done.
It was a gorgeous quilt, and now I have people wanting me to make more.
That's actually a really neat, it's a really neat idea, and I would agree, leadership, vision is a big part of it. And so thank you for sharing that idea with us. I realize, Sherry, you're kind of the mentor here, because we've got the current two presidents for National Kansas, the VP. So I'm the newbie and the neophyte. You're the mentor and the model for how to get through it successfully. How would you share with both the current presidents and with our rising VPs that are both seated here with Jalen and Ty? Oh, did I mention that I can do that to you? Sunny warned me not to flip a question on folks, but this is intimate. So we're enjoying coffee. We're amongst friends.
You know, I've been doing this a long time, since the 80s.
Wow.
So you realize I'm only 39. So I look good, I'm sure. Yeah. You know, I'm glad. I'm always eager to help anywhere I can. And Nahro, Kansas Nahro, Southwest Nahro, National Nahro, I will say this, and that's the fact of live and breathe it. There's only been one thing that I haven't done in Kansas Nahro, and that was VP of Member Services. Everything else from the secretary, I've done it. I've done it a couple times, so I've always had a hard time saying no, but there's a reason for it because I believe in Nahro. And the one thing I want to say to the newbies, always support Nahro. Nahro makes our lives easier. We got to give back to Nahro because they are making our lives easier. You know, I kind of reflected on a few things with the state, and sometimes we forget where we came from, and we should be proud of where we came from and where we're going. So we got a new normal coming up, and we're going to let the new leaders handle that. Sunny, Patricia, but where we came from, and I think we sometimes forget that. And one thing I want to plug in for Kansas Nahro is retirement. State employee retirement was actually and they successfully managed to get us on the public retirement program. Kansas Nahro did that. Okay. State health insurance program. That was my tenure. But again, every small housing authority has that opportunity to jump in on a very large scale health insurance program. Kansas Nahro did that. Kansas Nahro changed the security deposit interest law. Went before the state changed the municipal housing law to get those things changed so that we no longer have to pay interest on the security deposit. I could just keep going on and on what Kansas Nahro has done. We could say the same thing if we were talking about Southwest Nahro on the things they've done, and National Nahro, all the wonderful things that they've done to help the housing authorities, to make our jobs easier, to help the individuals that we serve. So I will always say to everybody who's new, don't let the membership or don't let the overwhelming of your job get in the way of getting educated through your Nahro organization. The best thing about Nahro, education, 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 networking, 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 and advocacy, advocacy, advocacy. Can I say anything else?
I think I need to take you with me and make a commercial with you. Oh my goodness, you were just like filling my soul and my heart. Thank you, Sherry.
That's how I was feeling too. I was like, I want to help. And then I thought, oh, I guess I did that. But wow, thank you. And I was going to say, Sunny, what did, as our current president nationally, that was powerful. What did you hear for Nahro today of the mentoring that Sherry just shared with us in terms of leadership?
Yeah, I can tell you this. One thing I heard was, and that went through my mind, was a wish to be Sherry. I want to be you, just because of that flame that you carry with you. And that's the first thing that I took away is what a great advocate for the organization, right? I mean, and Sherry's being able to list specific examples of what our organizations have done for us is critical, because when directors get those member dues on their desk, they have a decision to make. And if they don't know what their organizations are doing for them, then they may just let that membership lapse. And in my opinion, like what I think would yours would be is that's just not a good decision. It's not good for your organization because you're going to be left behind in the information that you need, in the professional development, in the advocacy piece. Just what Nahro's accomplished with advocacy has been huge. Oh my gosh, we almost sent 13,000 letters in August. That makes us a powerhouse. I mean, it just makes us a powerhouse on Capitol Hill. No wonder our elected officials are starting to talk about housing. Hello, and it's about darn time, right? So that's the main thing I took away is the passion that you have and that you're sharing with your other Kansas leaders as they're growing up through the ranks. Because my hope is that then they catch a little bit of that flame and they take it with them, and then it ignites into just a total firestorm. So that's the main thing that I took away, my senior vice president, was just that we need to be passionate about and sharing what this organization does for our members, and then also providing the path for them to be able to experience it for themselves and to lead for themselves.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's part of your passion, people, and purpose that you've been guiding us on. And Sheila, so I see the value of having an amazing mentor in Sunny, and you've had that in Sherry. As you now take this discussion, how do you give to Ty and Jalen as future Kansas City Nahro and perhaps even national Nahro folks? We've already kind of solicited Ty for a piece, but what else do you hear in this conversation for new leaders in your experience and your mentoring you've received?
Always be there on the other end of the line. I know that anytime I have a question, I can pick up the phone and I can call Sherry, or I can email her, or I can Facebook her, or whatever. I hope, and I know Ty does, I know Mark from Lindsborg does, and even Jalen. I hope that those people know that they can call me with any kind of question. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to go looking for it. I'm going to call Sherry, or I'm going to call Sunny, or I'm going to call Patricia now, or whoever I need to help them get the information. They have to know, just like I always knew, there's somebody out there. We're not just hanging here on the bottom of the tree by ourselves. There's a whole lot of apples in this tree, and we have to be able to ask each other questions and help each other through it. And now that I am that person, I want them to know that I'm always here on the other end of the line. They can call if they have suggestions for Nahro conferences, if they have stuff that they can, if they need to know which direction to go in next, I'm going to do everything I can to help them, just like Sherry and Joanne and the other mentors did for me.
That's awesome.
I would say something else as a plug for Nahro in general. It doesn't matter what level you're talking about. It was the very first time that I ever got that aha moment when I had HUD, this is many, many moons ago, but HUD was basically trying to pull some stuff. And I know that's a surprise, but they were. And I remember having a conversation with a colleague, and they said, it's something the National Nahro needs to know about. They need to check into that. I, in fact, did make that phone call, make that connection, and they straightened it out for me. So that's something that we need to also, we need to tell our story and make sure that, especially during the membership drive, is to, what are we doing? What are you getting for your buck that you're investing? Because it's worth investing in this community, in this organization.
I'm telling you, Sherry, commercial.
Well, I do know that, my connection with Sheila and the Kansas Nahro, just what limited connections I have now, have really helped with my job, and, just getting through it, knowing there is someone there. Because when I call my HUD point of contact, my last one, she is no longer there. She's moved on and doing something else for HUD, but she's like, well, I don't know either, and we're just gonna guess. And I'm like, that's not what I want from HUD. But when I call anyone with Nahro, if they don't know, they're like, oh, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna, I get information. I get a direction where I should go from the experience, where I don't get that when I am calling the people I'm supposed to call at HUD.
Can I throw something at each of us? And Jalen talked about, Jalen in a couple of comments at our last session talked about how to access information. And we had a question from one of our participants about just the specificity of what she could use her CARES Act money for when it pertained to operating funds. And I humbly was sitting thinking, oh, well, that just came out from a Nahro email. But then as I thought about some of the responses and conversation, the ability to work with email isn't the same for everyone. And the ability to have that access. And so I asked you, Jalen, and she's on the phone. So I was going to ask Jalen, so I asked the group, how can we make sure that we're reaching out to especially rural and smaller housing authorities so that they understand, as our leaders in their community, they have this access that Ty just talked about? How can we get a little bit better at doing the good things that we do?
So
As the Kansas state president, I think some of that I depend on Michael and Shelley as the service officers. I can send an email to them and say, hey, how many members do we have right now? Can I get all of those emails so that I can send out some kind of a personal email, or send an email to them? And Michael or Hattie or Shelley or somebody in their office is good about sending that out to everyone. I think depending on our service officers to do some of that is also big, as well as making the personal contacts ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We also would love to have some articles in the newsletters and stuff like that on tips for new executive directors, or this is what's been something that works for me. We're always welcoming submissions into that. So just a little plug.
it's a great idea. It's a
That
great
is
idea.
good.
Well, I have something for you this time finally, so I'll get that to you.
Thanks,
I
Ty.
haven't felt in the past that I knew enough to even provide information, but we went through a situation here, and I think I have something for you.
Good.
Good.
I think I'm going to just jump in, if y'all don't mind, on this. Because small agencies are near and dear to my heart. I mean, I'm one of those that's right on the cusp, right? It depends upon the day that HUD says what their number is for a small agency. So I've been a huge advocate for small agencies for a long time, and enjoyed working with Senator Crapo to get some of our legislation passed, in fact, for small agencies. And there's been some conversation about, like, do small agencies even have a voice or not at the national level? And my argument is that, first of all, yes, they do, because the membership of small agencies is so large at the national level, right? I mean, it's so large. But if you look back historically at some of the advocacy work that has been done by national on behalf of small agencies, it's monumental. We haven't seen legislation that Nahro's gone to bat for a large agency or a medium agency. It's either all sizes of agencies or small agencies, right? And I think you might remember a couple of years ago that even one of our letters in August advocacy was for SHARP, that Tessa talked about today during lunch, was about that SHARP legislation. And so Nahro's very active for small agencies, and your voices are heard at National Nahro. One of the things, though, that I have concern about isn't so much about the voice of one agency or one person at the national level per se. It's more about infusing voices of small agencies throughout the entire organization, right? I mean, I want to make sure that we have small agency voices on professional development and on member services and on housing and every possible committee, not just on one committee, but every possible committee. And Sheila, you brought up a good point, because then that poses a challenge. You know, how do they get there? How do they get there? And I think that, you know, regions do some really, really creative things, but I'll just kind of give you a sneak peek. One of my challenges to regions going forward, and, you know, so Miss Senior Vice President, this is something that you will be, you know, hearing more about and hopefully following through on, is that when regions appoint members to committees, we already look at diversity. We look at diversity on race, ethnicity, gender, and we try to look at diversity on agency size. But my challenge to regional leadership going forward is going to be, you appoint 4 people to each committee. I want at least one of those to be from a small agency, right? And how they get there, y'all need to figure out. Y'all need to figure out, because as a region, I mean, regions, there's things that we can do, right, to make sure that we help them get there. Maybe you're not to 6 meetings a term, maybe you're not, but let's work with our small agency partners to make sure that they are at the national level. Those voices are critical, and that their voices are being heard in every committee, in every piece of governance, instead of just 1 or maybe 2 pieces. So I'm really going to be working over the year to try to figure out ways that we can increase small agency representation in all committees. And so I think that that speaks to how we connect them, because then once you go back home and you've got that information, you're going to do exactly what Sheila does, right? You're going to pull up that email list and plug away to folks that you want to have that information. And that's how they stay connected, pandemic or no pandemic. That's, I think, a big key for small agencies moving forward.
Agree.
Thank you. I have to say, we talk a lot about large and small, and admittedly from Oakland, we're one of the monsters. We're even MTW. But one of the things I've shared with Sunny and a couple of the friends that I've developed over the years from small agencies is the amazing awe and humbleness I have when I talk to small agencies who do much more hands-on in their agency and understand the intimacy of the work that we do in ways I never could, where we're kind of larger and we have different folks that pay attention to one part of our operation. There's a lot of large housing authority folks like myself who don't know even to be amazed, because they don't get to hear from you as often. So I would say that as Senior VP, I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a beautiful relationship where I can count on some of the folks that I met today, specifically you guys, to do just what our president talked about on the national scale, because I have so much to learn from you. And just listening to the heart and the compassion and the intimate questions from our last session, again, to me, it's just humbling, like, wow, to just understand everything that we do and our staff does in that way. It's pretty cool. I had to tell you, that dated me. Cool is probably not a term young people use anymore, but it's just very cool. So I just want to give a shout out to what Sunny just said. That is what we're hoping for as we move forward, pandemic or no pandemic. One of the ways, Sunny, Michael just shared. So Michael, I'm going to cheat a little bit and share my screen, because he sent this to us, and I know several of you saw it, but here's that beautiful quilt that you created, and it's colorful and it is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm kind of bummed I didn't get a chance to get in on the on the procurement of it and the would auction off on it. But this is a great idea, and I think something that we could talk about, how funds can be raised to help smaller housing authorities participate in conferences, in addition to something like this, where there's a different level of zooming in and being able to take advantage of the training. So congratulations, this is beautiful, Sheila.
Thank you.
Work. Beautiful work. Michael is kind of off to the side, so I'm going to ask Jalen. Jalen, as you kind of struck me earlier when you talked about your journey in the last 3 years of just knowing and getting training and finding time for it. With everything you've heard we sharing today, what else would you say might be an idea that we want to think about differently as leadership on the national level and state level, trying to reach you? What else can we learn today or do differently? You're on mute.
I'm still getting used to this. You know, my number one priority probably coming in would have been the training. As far as a national level, I don't really know how to answer that, honestly.
Okay.
I haven't, I mean, I read all the emails, I go through all of that. I don't know. It's difficult, again, being a small agency. I only have 20 units. That's a lot different than Kansas City or, you know, someplace like that. And so everything, again, seems to be, I understand that, like, HUD has to, you know, we're all encompassed in one. You know, they can't make different rules for small agencies that they do for the larger one. But everything just seems so geared toward the larger agencies. And I know Sheila's had a problem with that also. And I don't know if that's something that National Nahro can help us with, because we have issues with getting contractors where, you know, larger agencies, you have to have, you know, a certain number of bids and all of that. Well, we're lucky if we can get one person to come and do a job for us, you know. And again, I know Sheila has that because she's clear out in western Kansas. So some of those rules or regulations, whatever you want to call them, don't seem to pertain to the smaller agencies. And I don't know if that's something that can be dealt with nationally, you know, on the national Nahro part of it. I don't know.
So, Jaylene, I think it's fabulous that you read your messages and everything, because, right, that's still keeping you connected and you're in the know and you're able to do the best you can with the 20 units that you have. So kudos to you. I think that when you're talking about those types of issues, there is room, as we bring these to the surface, there is room to talk about, like, what would a next sharp bill look like, right? So the last bit of legislation that was passed relieved some of the responsibilities for, like, environmental reviews and different pieces like that, which were really helpful. So it's kind of like, sadly, it is baby steps, but the more you talk about those issues, when we're thinking about, like, what would the next piece of legislation look like? Absolutely. Sheila shared that challenge with me of not being able to find folks who can come out and do a job. So procurement really ends up being like 60 days of time wasted when you could be doing other work, because you're only going to get one person that's going to put in on that bid. So there's things that National Nahro can be involved in, and that's part of, like, infusing some small agency leadership at the national level. So those things are being thought of when we're working on legislation pieces to try to push through to Congress. So those are things, and as you think of those are great to share with Tess, who spoke earlier today. Really great to share with her.
Right. And I know, you know, the environmental review was one, like the energy audit. I have another small town that's about 20 miles, 25 miles away from me. They only have 24 units. So her and I work a lot together. And between the two of us, we called like 6 different places to try and get an energy audit. We can't find anybody do an energy audit that's even local. Wow. There was somebody out of another state. Well, we have to pay to get them here and then pay for the hotel and then pay. We're a small agency. We don't have those type of funds for them to come and do, you know, be here for a couple hours doing work or, you know, whatever. And so it is a lot different for us. And Sheila, thank goodness, is great at her job. And, you know, she is definitely a sounding board, and she runs into, it's also nice because she runs into a lot of the same issues that we do.
Jalen, I would just throw maybe an idea, just a little seed.
I'm writing your seed down, so.
Okay. The big thing is what hit me was, we've had in the past where we've had some small agencies struggle maybe doing their environmental review, or maybe I don't know, let's not even talk about environmental review. Let's talk about energy audit. That's another big thing. It's hard to get done. Partner with a larger agency, allow them to put into their request for proposals you part of it, because they can split it out. We have a consortium and we do that for all of our agencies. So when you entice these companies to be a little more, they sharpen the pencil a little bit when they know they're going to get 5, 6, 7, 10 housing authorities under one contract. Now, everybody's still paying their fair share of that, but at the same time, that kind of takes some burden off of you. So think about that. Reach out, and I think maybe Kansas Nahro, Sheila, can maybe work on an area on our website to say, okay, hey, I'm looking for this. Anybody going out for bids on this, can I jump on your bandwagon to do that? I think that would work nicely.
Taking that note, Michael.
Okay.
And we've done that in our Tri-County area. Actually, we've done that for everything from fair market rent reviews. So even the larger housing authorities, it still just makes good sense, and it makes it easier on all of us, because for certain things like an energy audit is a good one, Jalen, you really are only going to get 1 or 2 people to respond, whether
Right.
we're in a busy urban core like I am to the rural. So a lot of things, they're the same, they just scale differently. So I think that's a great, consortiums and collaborations are awesome. And I know we're coming up for the end of time. And so Michael, you're taking notes, but it dawns on me that you've had a chance to work with lots of leaders nationally and locally. And so could you close us out by giving us perhaps the 1, 2 things that strike you as leadership that you would want to follow, and perhaps some lessons learned for all of us who have leadership responsibilities now with Nahro that we should be mindful of. So I'm going to put on you being the boss for this. How would you give us some mentoring as someone who works with leaders all the time?
Thank you.
You're on mute. Uh-oh, it's your sound just went out on us. And I know you have nuggets. We have to hear from you. Up, higher.
Is that any better?
No.
Come on, Michael, you're the tech guy.
I really put him on the spot.
You did.
All right, can you hear me better now?
There you go.
All right, just take the headset off, Papa Dill. I'm privileged that you asked me that. This is actually a passion of mine, just in all walks. I used to be the national spokesperson for the Make-A-Wish Foundation back when, before I came on board here. And so just inspiring others is, I think, in all walks of life. And so one of the biggest things that I would encourage everyone that I've learned, normally I'm a behind the scenes guy when it comes to these conferences. I don't get to go to the conferences. I stay at the home office and prepare for the next one. Like I have Texas and Missouri both next month. So I'm still gearing and getting ready. But thankfully, the one plus I can say to having these virtual conferences is I've gotten to meet some amazing people like y'all that are so humble. That's one of the biggest things about leadership is not letting the title consume you. When you portray yourself as one that is approachable and welcoming, it means a lot. I mean, to me, it's a Paul and Timothy type of partnership where you end up becoming this person that inspires others. Leaders should be an inspirational, not necessarily in charge of type of leadership role, in my opinion. And so that would be one of the biggest things I see is just continue to inspire and to have that open lines of communication, as they said. be willing to answer that email, answer that phone. And I'm so gracious in the last year that I've been here to, reach out to a lot of people. Even when I worked in other organizations, I never met with the top people that worked at headquarters and stuff like that. I was, state bound, local bound, stuff like that. I was thankful just to get to meet those. And so to be in an organization like Nahro that, talking to y'all, and actually when I got off a second ago, that was Adrian Codman that was calling and Kathy Cueto. And so, that be on that level of connectivity is just, I'm thankful to be a part of this, and hope that y'all are all encouraged and thankful as well. And that's what I've got.
I'm trying to make sure that I'm not being a wuss, but that was really, really cool. Thank you. I'm like, wow, that is the perfect cap to what we've been talking about in leadership. So thank you. I'm so glad I asked you that question. And I'm grateful to be part of this. I appreciate Sunny, you joining us, Sheila, you joining us, Sherry, you joining us, Jalen, you joining us, and the fact that Ty, we had an intimate conversation, but I have to tell you, for me, this is a shot of vitamins being asked to facilitate. And so I'm so grateful to be part of it today. And I thank you all for your time. Small is mighty. And so hopefully we started a spark, and I can't wait to see Jalen and Ty again, because I have a funny feeling, Sheila, we got some more leaders on the horizon. So.
Oh, sure. You know it.
All right. Well, everyone, many blessings. Stay safe, and just keep your eye on the belief that we are making a difference together. So.
Tricia, I wanted to say one thing to you.
Yes, ma'am.
We talk a lot about small housing authorities, and they are extremely important. But let me tell you, when it's hard for a small housing authority, when it comes to those big ticket items as far as legislation, we lean and we appreciate the large housing authorities because they're mighty. They'll go after it because they're not scared. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Sherry, because that's true.
Thank you so much. All right. Well,